Good afternoon and welcome back to Valley News Now. Adam Shalfa with Devin Fry, the sports director. How are you, buddy?
Good, man. Can't complain too badly. That was a nice handshake we did, like we just met each other for the first time.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
I think it's a habit when I have guests in the studio.
That's fair.
I go in there and as a sports guy, and we're talking about handshakes. You know who I learned a lot about handshakes from in the sports world?
Who?
Adrian Peterson.
What do you mean by that? Like he sat you down and was
No,
like,
I just remember they used to always say how strong his handshakes were.
Oh, yeah.
And I just remember it was one of those like random pre-game show things where they're not really talking about football, but they're
Right.
talking about players and stuff.
Right.
And then they would talk about how strong his hand and his grip was, and I was like, I just made sure, because the handshake is important in the professional world.
It is, yeah.
You know? So anyway.
We're giving you a lot of advice.
Thought you
right
might
now. You're
appreciate
welcome.
that.
It is. I've
Yeah.
been doing it all wrong. I've been
Speak-
going in really,
Just
really
with
light.
one of
Just
those.
kind of nobody screenshot that. Anyway, continue.
Speaking of Adrian Peterson, he played for the Saints at one point, didn't he?
Yeah, for like 4 games.
Yeah, so
Maybe
anyway,
one in the regular season. It didn't work out well.
Speaking of the Saints,
Uh-huh.
their quarterback went down.
Yeah, he did. We'll
Talk more about the NFL. Since we meandered our way over here.
But anyway, speaking of football, North Dakota State, that was good.
We'll talk
right?
about Spencer Rattler later, is what you're telling me?
Oh, yeah, I have a lot to say.
Okay, I actually
In
do
the
want to hear
NFL
about
portion.
that, but yeah, we should save that for the NFL portion. Good point.
You know.
But yeah, NDSU, that was a very exciting game for them. I'm sure the statement kind of performance I was expecting
Right.
After what happened last year, and just how good this version of the Bison look this year.
Correct, and a lot has kind of been made, more than I would make, of UND performance in the Fargo Dome in general, just like over the years. I don't think that's fair in this. That kind of discredits what North Dakota State was able to do. NDSU played another really complete game, just like they did the week before. And so, I mean, and the environment also in the Fargo Dome was top shelf. The best crowd I've seen in there since the JMU semifinal game with Destin Talbert's insane interception. And so when you have a sold-out crowd like that, it's an in-state rivalry game. There was a whole lot to like on Saturday. And then North Dakota State, dominated a 41-17 final. Cam Miller continuing his Walter Payton level year. We'll talk a little bit more about Miller in a second. But the big stars of this for me were the Bison defensive line. They have been out of control all season, and it really picked up in Valley play. And I believe it was double-digit defensive linemen found the stat sheet for NDSU. And, it goes beyond the stat sheet, of course. It's hurries, play disruptions. The defensive line is really making a big impact through these games with what they're able to do. And we talked a little bit to Coach Polasek on Tuesday. I'm so used to saying talk to him on Monday, but we talked to him on Tuesday kind of just about what he's seen from his D-line so far this year and with their depth and their execution. We also talked to Jackson Dudenheffer. Yep.
And so for maybe it to start to take shape, I'm so pleased with the amount of penetration we're getting. I'm so pleased with how our fundamentals are moving forward. We talked about being deep early in the year, and we just didn't see it, right? And so for maybe it to start to take shape right now, that's okay. We're still writing the story.
Any one of us can go in there and absolutely make an impact on the game, and I think that's what sets us apart, and that's what it should be too. Is we need any guy in there that can go get us that sack, go get us that TFL, go make that play. Because when it boils down to it, a win's a win.
And I was talking to Jackson there about what it's like playing on a group where everybody's fine. Anybody can make a play like that. And he started by saying, sometimes I wish I was getting some more reps in there, but a win's a win. And when you have guys like Eli Moe start, LaShaka Rokes is on that defensive line. Cody Heisman was second on the team in tackles. And so this defensive line is real. It all starts up front. Right. In football, and when you're able to disrupt the play as much as the defensive line does, that's going to be huge. And another thing to watch for with North Dakota State this weekend, they're playing Southern Illinois. Southern Illinois is down to their third-string quarterback, who is a freshman. They like to throw the football, and they're down to a freshman quarterback. The defensive line is going to be locked in for this one. They have a fresh target back there.
Okay.
And so that's going to be another big factor. Once again, it's always going to come down to the defensive fronts and the offensive fronts, and so we'll see what happens. But it also comes down to the quarterback position, and there's a little bit of a scare on Saturday. We had Cam Miller go down on this play. Actually, you can see he goes down to slide there, and his foot just kind of gets caught. He's really slow to get up, and it was an ankle injury that he had to leave the rest of the game with. We were, of course, very concerned in the press box. We were watching the whole time. Eric Moon on the sideline, who got this footage, watching Cam the entire time. He came back out from the locker room and then was standing next to Polisek, and it looked like he could get back in, but they kept him out of the game. We talked to Coach Polisek after the game. He told us that it was precautionary, but he could have come back in if he really needed to. He just didn't need to. Cole Payton was able to go in and finish it off. But we did get an update from Coach Polisek on Tuesday about Miller's condition, and because he was wearing a walking boot on Monday, and so that raised more concerns there. But we talked to Coach Polisek about it.
We're going to be tentative on it yesterday, so he's in a boot. He didn't have to be in the boot yesterday, and so we'll be real patient with him today. And I was told that by Wednesday he'll be up and running, but he's in there being diligent, and I don't really have a good answer for that except for I'd be shocked if he doesn't lace him up and play.
I mean, that sounds pretty much you want to hear.
Yeah,
if you're
exactly.
an NDSU fan. I think it's also important to realize that a coach isn't going to give you everything.
Right, exactly.
That would be
exactly.
irresponsible. You know, like the opponents watch the news.
They're
too.
going to listen to.
Yeah, but I mean, a lot of good signs.
Right, and with Coach Polisek after the game was immediately like, he could have, like he told us after the game, he's like, Cam could have kept playing. So they're being cautious with this for sure. I would also be shocked if Cam missed any time, just because I know a little bit who Cam is as a person right now, and I know how competitive he is, and I've seen it through his career here, and so I don't think he's going to be missing any time with this. But if they do, having a guy like Cole Payton back there who has seen a lot of this, has seen a lot of action, he was a very capable thrower on Saturday. I know he's looked at as more of a running gadget type quarterback, but he was looking like a pretty darn good quarterback on Saturday.
That flea flicker.
The flea flicker was amazing.
Yeah.
And so it helps a little bit. It eases that a little bit when you have a backup like Cole Payton ready to step in if they need to. But with the level that Cam's been playing at, you do not want to lose this guy now.
No.
Especially with South Dakota
If you
State
have the
a
best
week
player
away.
in the country, you want him suiting up.
Shockingly, you want him to play.
Yeah.
More big news on the FCS football front. NDSU and South Dakota State is going to be a primetime matchup next Saturday now. They still haven't announced that yet. It's going to be kicking off at 6:30 or 7 on ESPNU or ESPN2. That's what the press release said, so I had to put that out, and everyone was like, what's that mean?
Which one?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know.
We'll tune
find
in on
out.
Saturday, find out. But no, a primetime showing for the Dakota Marker game. It absolutely deserves it. It's going to be very fun. I'm excited for that environment in the Fargo Dome
It's
again.
going to be a great one.
If we thought UND was fun, South Dakota State is usually a step above that contest as far as fan vitriol. Speaking of UND, they have a bye week, obviously. Their football team does. Their hockey team is in action this weekend, though. They're coming off of an interesting situation over the weekend. They lost in their exhibition. Again, their exhibition contest was against Augustana. It's normally against Manitoba, who is not D1 or ACHA. They're a Canadian team, and so that's another D1 opponent in Augustana was in the Ralph on Saturday. UND falling 4-1 in that one, but now they have to bounce back in a big way. And we talked about the tough non-conference schedule that they always have, and that picks up immediately with Providence coming in. It's the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame game this weekend. Eric Moon was up in Grand Forks yesterday and talked to the team about the kind of bounce back that they need after the Augustana loss.
We only play one game this weekend, a very important, pivotal game, but we have time here to make sure that we're productive in the things that we have to get to. And the most important thing is making sure that there's urgency in our game throughout the week here.
It's been great. Compete has been high. We've been connecting a lot better on our passes, and coaches have been helping us on working out those skills that we need help with, and I think it's going to work out well for us this weekend.
We're coming in each day with a purpose, for sure. Every day we got to get 1% better, get a little more prepared for the weekend, and we're doing that for sure. It's not much joking around. We're pretty serious in there this week, and I think we should be.
And that was shocking. I remember
Yeah.
texting you and Eric after the game. I mean, no disrespect to Augustana, but we're talking about UND hockey.
Right, correct. Yeah, and like when you have these one-game series, first game of the year, you have no idea what you're looking at. You never know which way it's going to go. And there was a big sky is falling reaction kind of immediately. But again, it is an exhibition. The hockey specifically uses these to work out their lines, work out who's best on the ice together. You need these exhibition games.
That's a good point.
And honestly, scheduling this more tough exhibition than Manitoba, no offense to Manitoba, to kind of start the year, that's big. And so getting up against real competition right away is a big deal. And that's how UND's looked at it. And if I was a fan, what they said on Wednesday would be music to my ears about how locked in they've become since then and how they want to fix this right away too. I know fans watching the game don't like to see their team lose. I could tell you from experience as a former college athlete, you really don't want to lose either. No. It doesn't feel good. It's the worst feeling ever. And so they want to get it corrected. They're going to get it corrected. They'll be fine. I still have the exact same expectations I do going into the year from now that I did a week ago.
That being said,
frankly.
Providence is a really, really, really good hockey team.
Correct, and a good test right away. Plus the environment, the Ralph Engelstad Arena, getting to host the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame game. It's a perfect environment for that as the best arena in college hockey, and I don't feel like I'm hurting anyone's feelings by saying that.
I think it's nicer than most pro arenas.
I agree.
The first time going to the Ralph, I actually was like, this is nice. It's not, if not nicer than the Pepsi Center,
right?
Which was a game or a place I've seen a lot of games at,
right?
And that is a pro arena in Denver, Colorado.
Yeah.
So it's the Palace on the Prairie for a reason.
Exactly. And we're really blessed with. I'm going to go on a little bit of a short tangent here. It's not really a tangent. It's just like one thing. We're so blessed with the hockey arenas in our area. Shields Arena at the junior level. The Ralph up in Grand Forks. Some of the high school rinks around here are crazy.
Unbelievable.
And so, I mean, we truly have some cool hockey arenas. Mm-hmm. And as a kid from Alaska, it really warms the soul because we had our hockey arenas, and they did their best.
The Moorhead Spuds Barn is one of my favorite places, like
the sports center
in the area.
Yep. And then across the street with the Colon Ice Arena, it's gorgeous in there.
Yeah.
So I mean, nothing but good things to say about the hockey arenas in our area. For more hockey stadium coverage, you could follow me on Twitter at Fry the Sports Guy. But no, it's way too early to have the sky falling for North Dakota hockey. I think they're going to be fine. But
I appreciate you're calming my nerves.
I got you.
Because I was like, hey,
as well.
Eric, why did they lose?
You said, what happened?
I just checked my score. You know?
But like I said, these exhibitions are so unpredictable, and they're using time to work out the kinks on who's out there. They're splitting time between who's in the net. So I mean, there's so many variables in these. Even if it wasn't preseason, these one-game series, it's tough, and just not what they're going to be doing for the rest of the year. So, yeah, that's a lot of what we have on the local front. Obviously, NDSU continuing what they've been doing this year. Probably the biggest storyline going into the year. North Dakota State appears to be all the way back, number 2 team in the country for a reason.
Yeah,
right now.
they are looking. It's just a different kind of energy.
Right. Yeah, it's like I said, that sold out. The sold out Fargo Dome was incredible on Saturday. It was their biggest crowd since the Harvest Bowl. I cannot remember what year, but it was a handful of years ago. And so it was a different environment. You know what I mean?
You love to see a packed Fargo Dome.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. And so I'm sure we'll get that again in the next weekend here. But first, obviously, North Dakota State focused on Southern Illinois. They're a team that. The injury bug, it hits everybody differently, and that's the biggest thing that they're combating with this year. And they got backups starting all over the place. But again, I think the biggest X factor is the freshman quarterback that they have back there. The big thing with I almost said with South Dakota State. The big thing with Southern Illinois, they had about the same. They had almost 500 total yards in the last game, but they walked away with 10 points. So
that's weird.
It was. I've never seen a box score like that. But they were moving down the field. They're just not able to finish things or find the end zone. And I think with the way Code Green has been playing even the last couple of weeks, since the East Tennessee State game, which everyone was panicking over back then, they've really turned a new page. So I'm hopeful to see that continue here. And for UND as well, getting the bye week, the perfectly timed bye week. Coach Schweigert even said that it was he couldn't come up with a better time to have that week off, sandwiched between North Dakota State and then an always tough Northern Iowa team. It really perfect time for that, and so we'll see how everything shakes out after this week for our FCS teams. But it's a good time to be an FCS football fan right now, especially in this area.
Devin, I'm kind of just mind blown that basketball season is almost
Oh
back.
my gosh, yeah, I almost forgot that we were talking about that.
Yeah. and we won't have a super long discussion, but yeah,
Right.
we're tuning up for basketball season.
Yep. A couple weeks away. Preseason polls out for the Summit League. The polls were a little bit surprising, in my opinion. I think Bison men and women picked to finish third is about fair. They're always solid no matter how many pieces they lose. Well, they have been recently.
Very well coached.
And
They figure it
exactly.
out and they get better as the year goes on.
Right, so I think third is pretty fair. They have Kansas City at number 1 on the men's side, which I think was a similar story last year, and then South Dakota State at second. Women, South Dakota State picked to win Summit League for the 5th year in a row. I don't see much changing
They usually
there.
win it.
But the big thing there is going to be the new faces on the NDSU teams. There's of course some returning stars to focus on there. The biggest losses are going to be on the women's side. They lost both Elle Evans and Heaven Hamling.
And I'm going to call them their 2 best players
Yeah,
last year.
yeah. Well, yeah, I think that was about 90% of their scoring was from
Yeah,
those two.
yeah.
They do have some Abbeys on the roster that have been
Is it 4 Abbeys,
I think
5
so,
Abbeys?
4 Abbeys, I think. But they've been growing up through the program, and so they're going to be able to fill that in. The men also lost some names, but they have some good names coming back as well. I'm expecting kind of bigger things from Derek Dissett coming into the year for the NDSU men, and then oh gosh, I'm blanking on his name. He was second team All Summit League to start the year. I'll remember it in a little bit, but no, they have some key pieces returning, but a largely new group. Andrew Morgan gone from last year. That's going to be tough. Damari Wheeler-Thomas.
Jakari White
was second team All Summit. That's right.
Jakari the Ferrari, as I like to
There
call
you go.
him.
That's pretty good. Jakari White, Damari Wheeler-Thomas. Like I said, I'm expecting big things from Derek.
Mason
Dissett.
Miller, I thought he was on the football
No,
team.
it's spelled differently.
Oh, okay.
Different Mason.
Mason
Yeah, no.
Miller. I was going to say, I thought he was a lot bigger than
No,
that.
he's also a major league pitcher too. I don't know how Mason does as much as he
Wow.
does. I know it's crazy.
Very
But,
talented guy.
To Javis Miller also, and if we go down a little bit more, Noah Feddersen, of course.
Fetty got it going last year.
And so there were some guys that took some steps last year, kind of looking to take that next big step now, and we'll see what happens with that. But a lot of new faces on both teams there. And then for UND, the men were picked to finish 6th in the Summit League. They had 2 All Summit League guys to start the year. Trayson Eaglestaff, of course, another Western North Dakota football product out of, he was, I believe, first team, and also was Amar Kaluovich, whose name I messed up on the show, and I haven't forgiven myself since I
Well,
said
you got
it
it
on
right
Tuesday.
there.
Yeah,
I think they should be higher.
yeah. Then 6th. I could.
Yeah, I
would
think
make that
6
argument.
is kind of, I think that's chalkboard material for a team that has just a kind of gross amount of young talent.
Yeah.
Eagle Staff is one of the best players. I think at this point, no pun intended, this guy's flying in under
He
the
is.
radar.
He is.
Because I get it, BJ Omot left
Right.
because he's at Cal now.
Yes.
That's a huge loss, but this team was so balanced and deep last year. Eli King was like the king of the dirty work.
Yeah.
In the contributions he would make. Even like he's a small player that does big man dirty work. And you love to see that. I think that this team is super slept on. I'm shocked to see them at 6.
I probably would have voted for them around 4th if I turned in a poll for the league. I'd probably have them around 4th, and that's only because I don't even know if I would have KC as high as I do. They're kind of banking on potential with them again. But South Dakota State, North Dakota State, I think UND is kind of right behind them in that, and I'm NDSU only because they tend to figure this kind of stuff out throughout the year. UND women picked to finish 7th. They have another tough road ahead of them this year. They lost arguably
the best player
the best
in the
player
history
in team
of,
history.
at least in the D1 era.
Right,
Yeah.
one of the best D1 Fighting Hawks that we've ever seen in Casey Baravich. So that's going to be tough to replace. And again, I know replacing potential is something that's not going to fall on one player. It's going to be the whole team. But when you have somebody that was as much of the scoring as Casey was, that's going to be tough to do. And so I think that one's fair for UND. But again, this is all preseason stuff. We'll see how it shakes out, but I don't tend to lend too much credit to preseason polls just because how often do we look back and laugh at how wrong we were about what things looked like in the preseason.
Well, last year, I think that UND team, it was, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, it was a massive disappointment for a team that was projected to be third coming into last year's poll. And, Borovich, obviously kind of the spoon that stirs the straw that stirs the drink, right? But they had issues. They got the big transfer from Minnesota that really wasn't great.
Right.
They had locker room issues. It was kind of a tough go of it. Kira Pemberton really came on huge, though, and she was someone who didn't get started right away because she transferred in from Canada.
Right.
And so kind of different time when she could get started with the team, but I think she could take a big step forward. I think overall
they have some height this year.
Yeah,
there's a lot of 5'11s to 6. There's a 6'3" player. Walker Demers out of Grafton. I expect her to kind of start turning a little bit. Jossie Schiller out of Grand Forks Red River.
She's going to make impact immediately. Rakaya Beal. They had players who I think are going to step into larger roles. I think they're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Coach Bernhard, I'm just a big fan of what she does schematically. I think down year, but overall, I think the program's going to continue to head in the right direction.
And a kind of under the radar acquisition, which I was just reminded of actually by looking at this. If you go down, Dennis Hutter, that's the Mayville State. He was the Mayville State women's coach for the past.
Oh wow, okay.
It might have been like 15, 20 years. He led them to the NAIA Sweet 16 last year. So he's a good addition as well to the coaching staff. So I really think they're going to be able to figure out the pieces that they have. I'm excited to see what they do with all this height. In the Summit League, that's a huge difference maker. If you have a player that's 6'1" to 6'3", if they're able to move the ball effectively, they're dangerous. And so I'm curious to see what happens when we start league play. But this preseason period and then early in the regular season when you're playing teams that you will never see again, it's hard to get a good baseline off of it. So I'm excited to see what happens when we start league playing a little bit. But
that's the thing
I'm excited to see about Jossie Schiller as well.
The last few years, her at Red River, I mean, she's Nodak Iverson, as I like to call her.
I like it.
So I can't wait to see what she does at the next level.
Yeah.
Is it time for our picks, Devin?
Let's talk about football.
All right, we got the San Francisco 49ers.
I just want to say for the record, I went 10-4 last weekend.
And I went 11-4. Hey, you and me.
Look at us.
We were actually first and second in the office pool.
Can't be touched.
So we love that.
Never lost.
Except for the times we did.
Ignore that.
So Seattle hosting San Francisco. Still no Christian McCaffrey. Brandon Ayuk had a really good game last week. Seattle looks solid, but San Francisco favored 3.5. Who do you got?
I'm going with San Francisco.
I'm going San Fran.
I think they are the better. We got burned by San Francisco last year, or last week, I should say.
Yeah.
But I think they're the better team. We'll see. Oh, we got another early kickoff on Sunday.
London game. Bears against the Jaguars in Tottenham Hotspur Stadium.
The London Jaguars.
The Jaguars secondary is it's really bad.
Yeah. It's not great.
Caleb Williams is really good.
Yes.
The Bears' run defense ranks 18th in the NFL. Travis Etienne might not play. Tank Bigsby is the X factor. The Bears gotta slow down Tank Bigsby, but ultimately I'm going Chicago.
I'll take your word for it. I'll ride Chicago, mostly because I just think Chicago's a better team than Jacksonville.
Absolutely. Green Bay Packers hosting the Arizona Cardinals. Arizona coming off that win against San Fran.
I'm going to go with the Packers.
Yeah,
Green Bay at home.
Yeah, come on.
It just makes sense to me.
The Houston Oilers hosting the Indianapolis Colts. Just kidding. Tennessee Titans.
The Colts hosting the Colts. This is a coin flip game for me.
I'm going Tennessee.
I'm going to go with the Colts to be different, and that is the only reason. Because I'm going to be the same as you in the next few picks, I can tell.
Because Houston's going to win over
beat
New England.
Yep.
Tampa Bay is going to beat New Orleans. Are you going to be different? This is our
No,
chance.
I can't pick
Spencer
the Saints.
Rattler.
Yes,
though.
very
Tell me
excited.
what
I'm
you
just
think.
very excited to see him. I'm cautiously excited.
Do you think he's going to be better than? Because some people are saying he's going to actually steal the job from Derek Carr.
I think he has the potential to.
Okay.
I do think he has the potential to do that. I'm not going to predict anyone losing. I'm not going to predict anybody losing a quarterback job. I am, as a Saints fan, I
will lose.
I am thrilled that they're going with Rattler instead of Jake Haener.
Okay.
No offense to Jake Haener. In my opinion, Rattler is the future of this franchise, and so getting him real live reps, that's what I'm excited about. And so I'm gonna go with the Bucks because I don't pick the Saints because I think I'll jinx them.
You believe in hedging your bets there.
I do, yeah.
That's why Jonathan always picks against the Vikings every week.
Makes sense.
He says he hopes he has 17 wrong or whatever at the end of the year. Philadelphia Eagles are going to take care of business against a pretty bad Browns team, but gosh, how disappointing are the Browns this year?
Well, I mean, to me, they're not disappointing. I didn't have very high expectations coming into the year.
You thought they were going to be bad.
They still had a lot of injury concerns in the offseason, and so that's carried on into the regular season. They were hoping that their offensive line was going to be able to carry them, and then half their offensive line got hurt. So it's I'm going with the Eagles.
I'm going with the Eagles. I'm going with the Ravens over the Commanders.
I'm going to go with the Commanders.
It's in Baltimore.
I'm going to go with the Commanders.
Okay.
Upset. That's my big upset.
I believe Eric also took the Commanders.
Oh, man. Oh, well, I'll be the same as Eric. That's fine.
Well, I mean, you guys are the sports department. You guys know what you're talking about here. And Washington has been really good.
Yes.
Kind of a surprise team, 4-1.
Very fun to watch, too. Jane Daniels is playing at like an MVP level right now, which is crazy to say as a rookie, but he really is.
I don't think they've played any really good teams, though. I think this is going to be the toughest opponent they play, and I think Baltimore flexes on them.
Okay.
The LA Chargers visiting Mile High Stadium.
I'm going to go with the Broncos.
I'm going with the Broncos.
I don't know. Sure, coin flip.
The Steelers against Aiden O'Connell.
Yeah.
And the Las Vegas Raiders. I'm going with the Steelers because I think the sky is falling in Las Vegas.
The sky's falling in Vegas. That's fair. The Raiders are an absolute mess. Pittsburgh's defense, especially up front, way too good for Vegas.
And their secondary is also very good.
Right. So
I mean, Pat Surtain Jr. or whatever.
If I was Aiden O'Connell, I would be very annoyed at being.
Oh, this is my first start.
Like,
Great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sweet. Thanks, Coach.
Let
Appreciate
Gardner flounder one more week.
Just one more week, please. But no, I'm going with Pittsburgh in this one.
All right, this next game, it was the hardest game for me to pick. The Dallas Cowboys hosting the Detroit Lions. It kind of went back and forth. I eventually landed on Dallas.
I'm going to go with Detroit. I'm still kind of believing in them. I feel like Dallas hasn't done a lot to inspire a lot of confidence in me. I know the win over Pittsburgh felt super fluky, and all the weird stuff going on around that game. I think the Lions will be fine. I'm going with Detroit in this one.
I feel like because we're in Fargo, North Dakota, I have to mention that Hunter Lipke is playing great football.
He is. He's doing exactly what he needs to do to keep a job for the rest of his playing career.
And I think he's going to be, you shouldn't go pick him up on your fantasy team.
Right.
But if you're watching the Cowboys, it's at the point where he's on the field a ton.
Yep.
Even if he's not with the ball in his hands, he's making impact plays. His teammates are saying really positive things about him. They're embracing him. Dak Prescott nicknamed him the H Train.
That's an incredible name.
Yeah.
And he's going to convert a third down per game. That's been his big thing lately. All of a sudden my Twitter blows up with everyone like Lipke caught that.
The
people
first
are
down
excited.
for Dallas there. I'm excited.
But
Atlanta Falcons visiting the Carolina Panthers. Andy Dalton does this weird thing every once in a while where he looks really good, and people are like, Andy Dalton. And then they're like, oh, yeah, it's Andy Dalton.
Oh, yeah.
And we're at the second phase of that where people are like, oh, yeah, it's Andy Dalton.
Yeah, Carolina, he made people forget for a single week against the Raiders that they were a total mess. I'm going with the Falcons on this one.
Falcons are 6-point favorites. I think they cover that by a lot.
That's fair. If you're going to Dakota Magic Casino this weekend, maybe look at that.
The New York Giants, surprisingly good.
Yeah, they've been. I
thought they were going to be the worst team in the NFL, Devin. They're 2-3, so I shouldn't say
not
surprisingly
great,
good, but
they have won 2 games, which is probably 2 more than I thought they would. Cincinnati, on the other end of that, they only have 1 win against the Panthers. That's not even a real team. So
And that's why I'm going Cincinnati.
Why is this the prime? I don't know why this is the primetime game. I'm also rolling with the Bengals. I have picked against the Giants every week, I think, and I will continue to do so.
Yeah, I just think that Cincy, they after Joe Burrow said something about this team is not a contender. This team, he said some slight shade at his squad. Clearly, they're not a Super Bowl contender.
Right.
But I think they want to be one as long as Joe Shiesty, they call him.
That was very good. That was very modern of you, Adam.
Yeah, I know things. As long as he's QB1, you want to have aspirations to compete at that level. They're not there, but it's going to rile up the squad enough where they're like, all right, let's beat the Giants.
Right. They're also coming off a game they should have won last week. Jamar Chase has been playing out of his mind.
T. Higgins starting to show up too.
Yeah, and so I'm rolling with the Bengals.
The New York Jets without Robert Saleh.
Right. Yeah. That's fun. I'm going to get right ahead of you now. Picking the Jets.
I'm picking the Bills.
This happens every year. Someone fires their coach in the middle of the season, and then their team wins games. It happens all the time. I don't know why. I can't explain it. It always works that way. And so I'm rolling with the Jets. And
Interesting.
I've seen it happen too many times where I pick against a team that just fired their head coach because, they're in turmoil. And then the interim head coach rattles off like 4 wins in a row. And they're like,
Antonio Pierce last year. Good
right,
point.
exactly.
Yeah,
it happens all
yeah.
the time. And so I'm rolling with the Jets.
Okay, well, there you're wow. There you have it, folks.
We're
I got
broadcasters.
that sentence out. Thank you all for tuning in. Enjoy the games. I got to ask you before we go, though. Of course, any huge high school games?
We got a couple. We got a couple things to look forward to on Friday Night Live. The Bison Breakdown is back. We have Noah Gindorf in studio, former NDSU tight end, former NFL tight end, now sideline analyst for the radio stations. He's going to be in. He came in and we talked about NDSU's win and then the matchup against Southern Illinois. And then for the high school matchups, I'm very excited. I'm heading out to Alexandria, making a little bit longer of a trip than I would most Fridays because it's the number 1 versus number 2 team in the 5A level in Minnesota, going head-to-head. Moorhead and Alexandria. Moorhead, I did a story on them last night, which you can find on our website, valleynewslive.com. They're averaging 51 points a game.
Wow.
Alexandria, another high-powered offensive team. So I'm expecting fireworks, and I'm expecting them early. So
that's going to be fun.
2 undefeated teams going head-to-head. That's going to headline Friday Night Live tomorrow night at 10.
Moorhead Spuds, hot potatoes.
There you go.
You like that?
Yes, that's
all right. Have a good weekend, everybody. Thanks for tuning in on Valley News Now.